Gael, and I'd like to, on behalf of the Minister for Justice and the Government, thank deputies from all sides of this House for the wide range of contributions that have been made throughout this debate. And I think it's fair to say that the level of engagement from all sides does recognise that this is an issue on which there is cross-party concern, and one would hope on which we can generate cross-party consensus in terms of how this country, and indeed how the European Union and the international community, must respond to the humanitarian and refugee crisis. And that's what it is. It is a humanitarian crisis, and I agree with those who say that. I also would echo the point made by many that we are well served in this House by the fact that this House traditionally, and right through now to the 32nd Dail, has always been one which has agreed and responded positively to requests for solidarity and for action in assisting refugees seeking protection within the EU. And I was certainly struck by the number of my constituents contacting my office by phone, by email, saying, do more. This country must do more. We want Ireland to play its part in supporting refugees in their relocation efforts. And I think that's a message we all got right across this House. It's one that we have to hear very clearly. Our citizens want Ireland to be to the fore in pushing for solutions to this humanitarian crisis. Second point I'd make is I was moved by Deputy Brady's reference to the poem Home by Warson Shire, which I just looked up there, which I think does put words to the very serious humanitarian crisis we're experiencing here, which all too often can be dehumanised, perhaps in the media and perhaps in politics. These are real people. Nobody puts their child on a boat or their child in an awful situation should they not feel the absolute necessity to do that for the safety and well-being of their family. The fourth point in response to Deputy McGrath that I would make is that the Irish Navy, I too am very proud, as I presume are all members of this House, and many have expressed that, of the role being played by the Irish Navy. And the Minister for Defence earlier today in this House confirmed that the Navy will continue to make that effort, and there will be a further deployment this Sunday of members of the Irish Navy, and I think that's something we would all welcome, the continued assistance and involvement of the Irish Navy. I'd also just make the point that Deputy McGrath and others referred to the importance of Ireland resettling and helping in the resettlement and relocation of the 4,000 people that we have committed to. And I just want to put on the record of this House that that commitment still very much stands from this government and from this state, and the difficulties in terms of the low numbers arises, as others will know, from external issues. But the 4,000 people is still very much the commitment of this state. And in fact, that's a number that could very well increase when family unification is taken on board. Ireland is Cathaoirleach and will continue to play our part at an EU level to implement agreed solutions to this refugee crisis, and we will continue to ensure that all measures taken are in full respect of human dignity and in line with our EU and international obligations. At home, we must ensure that Ireland remains a welcoming and inclusive society for those in need of our protection. This House has a role to play in fostering public debate which supports treating asylum seekers and persons fleeing war and persecution with humanity and respect. That has always been our tradition here. Our response to persons seeking protection, though, does not end once they reach our shores. Persons arriving under the relocation and resettlement programmes are being given all necessary support to assist them and their families in their integration into Irish society, including schooling of children, language classes for adults, full health checks, emergency welfare payments and full board and accommodation. Some of those arriving would have experienced significant trauma, be it physical or mental, and they are receiving all appropriate supports. It is clear, though, that our asylum system is in need of reform, and this is a point that's been raised throughout this debate. This government has introduced reforming legislation. Last December, this House debated and passed the International Protection Bill. The International Protection Act will reform the system for examining and determining applications for international protection in Ireland through the introduction of a single application procedure. Under the single procedure, an applicant will make only one application and will have all grounds for seeking international protection and to be permitted to remain in the state examined and determined in one process. This single procedure will replace the current multi-layered and sequential protection application and appeal system and is intended to achieve the desired balance in treating asylum seekers with the humanity and respect they deserve, whilst also ensuring that we have a more efficient asylum and immigration procedure and safeguards in place. Many of the deputies in their contributions today have also raised the issue of direct provision. The report of the working group, which was published by Government last June, made a total of 173 recommendations, and many of these have implications for a number of government departments and services. The Department of Justice recently completed a consultation exercise on the status of the recommendations across all responsible divisions, departments and agencies. The exercise has shown, and I'll finish on this point, Gael, that 90 of the recommendations have been fully implemented and a further 26 are in the process of being implemented. 116 recommendations progressed since the report's publication in June 2014, and a further 46 recommendations are the subject of ongoing consideration by the Cabinet Committee on Social Policy. Yet another need to form a government so we can progress these further. I do think it's important that we continue not to pursue this issue, that we don't just have a one-off debate. This is something that's going to require work from all members of this House in the 32nd Dáil, and I hope something we can build and continue to build political consensus on. Good morning.
Thank you, Minister Harris. That concludes